And Rob, we said it. Bill Walton passed away today of cancer, 71 years old. What are your thoughts? Did you know Bill personally?
No, I didn't. You know, I ran into him a few times, Chris, at ESPN. You know what I mean, like that. But I didn't know him, have any kind of relationship with him.
I was on. I did some shows with him at ESPN. NBA Coast to Coast comes to mind, and he was very fun to work with. As you could see, Rob. I mean, he was hilarious. He never held anything back. He called my takes balderdash and poppycock.
I like him already.
But in fun, you know, I mean, I loved being on with him because it was so fun. You know what I mean? When a guy has that much energy and is saying funny stuff and you kind of ribbing each other going back and forth, it was a lot of fun. So I'm not going to act like we were great friends, but, you know, I saw him other times just being around the NBA and covering the league. But really was a fun guy to be around, and we'll talk about him as a player. But what are your kind of recollections of him?
It's funny. I remember I've been watching, obviously, all the video, Chris, and all the stuff. And just that bright red hair. I remember the crazy beard and the Trailblazers. I just remember that Bill Walton. I also remember the Celtics Bill Walton, you know, at the end.
That was a comeback, right?
Yeah. After
he won Sixth Man of the Year on that team, Rob, that many think might be the best ever, 1986 Celtics.
Yep. Was that Bill Fitch, the coach, in 86?
I think it was Casey Jones.
Oh, was it Casey Jones? Okay.
Yeah.
And Chris, obviously I know the history of UCLA and him and Kareem and, you know what I mean, and John Wooden, the coach. Right. So I just always kind of admired his career, but always felt like it's a shame that he could never stay healthy. You know, like that was what could have been had that guy ever been healthy. And we might be talking about him as one of those
almost certainly a top 10
right?
center would have been
almost an iconic figure. But his career was derailed for the most part.
Well, speaking of that career, and my first.
What do you think of more? Do you think about him as just a trailblazer at UCLA or the Celtics? What's the first thing you think of when you think
I'll share why it's a trailblazer.
Okay.
Because my first year, and Rob, I wonder what your thoughts are on this. Because when I was born in 1968, so I'm a little kid in the early 70s, and I'm living in Cincinnati, Ohio, where football and baseball, even though I was in a black neighborhood, football and baseball for us we were more into that than basketball. And the basketball players I really thought of and were the biggest fans of were the Harlem Globetrotters. More so, now again, I'm a little kid, but more so than the, NBA players at that time, I was into the Globetrotters.
Mm-hmm.
And so the first year I really got into the NBA was the first year Dr. J played in the league. And that was 76 to 77. And he became my favorite player. And my first recollection of Walton was that year in the NBA Finals. And Dr. J had taken the league by storm, coming from the ABA, and led the 76ers to the championship. They win the first two games, and I was like in love with Dr. J. Everything.
The afro.
And, obviously the high flying dunks, the fancy play. And Bill Walton and the Blazers came back, Rob, and won the next 4 games and won the series in 6. And I was so upset. And even to this day, and obviously Dr. J has a great legacy, but I always think, had he won that championship, Rob, he won 2 in the ABA, he won the 1 in the NBA with Moses Malone.
Right.
But had he won that championship in 77, Rob, there's probably an argument for Dr. J as a top 10 player of all time. And being that I liked him so much, I always think about that. But Rob, Walton led that team. They swept Kareem and the Lakers in the playoffs. And that was check this out. Because think about this. If he did this today, think about what the view talk would be.
Right.
This was just his third season in the NBA. His first season, he only played 35 games. Second season, played 51. So this was kind of like his first full season. Played 65 games. Led the Blazers to their first winning season in the history of the franchise.
When he got there,
they had only been in the league. They were expansion in, I think, 1970. So they had played 7 years in the league, had never had a winning record, had never been to the playoffs. So this is the first time they ever make the playoffs. They're the youngest team ever to win a championship. And first time, Rob, he leads them to the championship. We're talking about Minnesota and Anthony Edwards paying their dues, right? Losing before you win. He didn't do that. That's how dominant he was. And he was the finals MVP. And then, like you said, Rob, next year he won the MVP, only played 58 games, but won MVP. And then, Rob, 3 of his next 4 years, or let me put it this way. In the next 4 years of his career, he only played 14 games.
That's unbelievable, Chris.
And 3 of the years he sat out completely, and then 1 year he played 14 games. And that's really what derailed his career, Rob. It was just the foot injury.
Absolutely, because he was off to a fantastic start and would have, Chris, I agree with you, be considered one of the all-time greats, but it was derailed. And I just wonder, for people out there, 877-99 on Fox, what were
your thoughts about him as a broadcaster? I thought he was a great broadcaster. I was very disappointed when they took, I think it was, I don't know if it was NBC, whatever station it was. But remember, Walton and Steve Snapper Jones used to be the, color commentators for NBA games.
I remember that.
And I thought they were great. Now, they would joke back and forth, and Snapper would, Bill would say stuff because, he was a stutterer when he was growing up, Rob. And one of the ways they helped him overcome his stuttering was just say something. Don't just think about it first. Just say what comes to your mind. And so he would say stuff, and Snapper Jones would rib him and, snap at him and everything. But I thought they were a great tandem. For younger people, Rob, and I think, let me know if you think this is appropriate. I thought him and Snapper Jones were a lot like Van Gundy and Mark Jackson.
Yeah, I remember that. That was on NBC. Steve Trapper Jones, right? And he was
Snapper Jones,
and he was Chris. The Portland. He did the Portland local games, and then would do NBC for the national.
Yep. And I thought they were great, and I thought it was a mistake when they took them off. But Bill went on and worked college games for ESPN, Rob, and it was a great broadcast. It was a lot of fun. All right, 877-99 on Fox. Your turn to weigh in. What are your thoughts? What do you remember about Bill Walton?
Is it like UCLA? Is it about the Celtics? Is it about him just being a broadcaster for ESPN and NBC? Or is it the Portland Trailblazers? I mean, if I had to think of him in one thing, for real, for me, it would be Portland. With the beard and everything, Portland, that's what I think about him.
And getting dunked on by Doc. But no, I think of him as Portland. And Rob, I tell you what, I think clearly the best college player ever was Lou Alcindor or Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. But Walton's on the short list in the conversation, just for college.
Oh, yeah.
He was dominant. 3-time Naismith Award winner and won 2 championships.
It's like Christian Laettner, like as a college player, was one of the all-time great college players.
Yeah. Your turn to weigh in on Bill Walton. Share your thoughts about the great legend passing today of cancer.
Chris, Alan Lee, who fills in for you, one of our odd couple fill-ins here on the show, he texted me and he said, Bill Walton, Chris, 1973 NCAA final against Memphis State. He scored 44 points on 21 of 22 from the field, Chris. 21 of 22 from the field. And also the longest winning streak at UCLA was with Bill Walton, not Kareem. It was under Bill Walton. Unbelievable. All right. Evan from New York, we told to call back. Chris, he called back. You're on the Odd Couple Fox Sports Radio.
Listen, you said dead serious, and I took that seriously. So I said, I'm calling back. I'm not missing out, especially when it comes to this man, Bill Walton. He was such unbelievable talent. And let me tell you guys something. I'm a young man, but I've had an uncle who has told me some crazy things. And he even told me once that there was a point in time they were discussing who was the better center, Bill Walton or Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
Wow. Hey, Evan, thank you, man. Your phone is popping in and out, Chris.
Yeah.
I don't know what that is, but thanks for calling back and thanks for adding that about whether it was Bill Walton or Kareem, the conversation. Thanks, Evan, for that. Tony in Vancouver, you're on the Odd Couple Fox Sports Radio. What's up, Tony?
Hey, I've been a lucky man in my life. Bill Walton was the same age as I am. I've seen him many times at the Bull Memorial Coliseum in Portland with the Blazers and with the Boston Celtics. Even seen him when I was living in Seattle. But he's one of the few guys whose off-court greatness was rivaled or better than his on-court greatness. I mean, his ability to do
that's a great point. Probably maybe second only to Barkley.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
In terms of former players that made it big as broadcasters, at least as far as NBA players, would you say?
Yeah, I mean, pretty big when you think about it. Not everybody makes it to that level, but he did. Thanks for the call, Tony in Vancouver. Appreciate it. Steve in Kansas City, you're on the Odd Couple Fox Sports Radio. What's up, Steve?
Yeah, guys, and really enjoying the show.
Thank you.
I as a kid, I just remember him primarily with the Celtics, and you could see flashes of those brilliance. But I watched that documentary, and it was just so satisfying to see him get that last run with the Celtics. That you could tell he was enjoying going to work, and that's the best feeling in the world when you can't wait to get to work. And with DJ and Chief and Bird and McHale, one of the greatest teams ever, and he was having a ball, and he got to relive some of that glory. Everybody should have that sort of ending of his career. It was fantastic, and he was an entertaining announcer. I loved him as play-by-play. But boy, that Celtics run was something for him. I mean, that was a lot of pain in his career, and he really ended on the right note.
No doubt.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Steve. Let's squeeze in Terry one more in North Dakota. You're on the Odd Couple Fox Sports Radio. What's up, Terry?
Gentlemen, I'll go quick. Number one, it's so cold up in here in January. You people in Chicago think you're tough. We go to Chicago to get us to work on our suntan and warm up. That's how cold it is up here. Now, when it comes to Bill Walton, here's my challenge. You kind of stole my thunder. That 1973 title game.
Yes.
In any sport, championship game, any sport, tell me a better performance in the history of sports.
21 for 22 from the field. I don't know if you could get any better than that. I mean, without being perfect, Chris. I mean, that's an incredible – in a big game?
No, that's a huge performance.
Huh?
There's no doubt about that. That's a tremendous performance. I mean, to his point, I mean, that's up there with what Reggie Jackson with the 3 home runs.
3 home runs, 3 pitches.
Magic
in the World
Johnson,
Series.
Game 6, 42, 15, and 7. I mean, that's an all-time great performance. There's no question about it. So, yeah. No, he was fantastic, Rob, and I'm glad we took this time to, talk about him and also give others a chance to weigh in. Because it's just unfortunate. And we mentioned the injuries. That's what made 86 so special, Rob, when he was the 6th man on that Celtics team. Only averaged 7 points a game, but he brought something to that team that really helped them, win that championship.